Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment you are going to hear the voice of a man who will tell you some tremendously important facts, some amazing facts. The voice of a man who has made a discovery that is revolutionizing human thought.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm delighted today to have Jessica Herman, the amazing channeler of Vagrein, a mystic, a best-selling author, and her teachings and her channelings have really helped a lot of people. And I was super excited to read these channelings, and they're unique and powerful. And I have this incredible opportunity to talk with her and maybe speak to Vagrein. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Jessica. So nice to have you.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And as I mentioned just before we came on, I'm a huge fan of yours. So this is a wonderful opportunity for me as well.
Amazing. So everybody has their own story with channeling. Before we talk about how you connected, tell me about like prior to that, like what your exposure was to channelers and your feelings about it in general.
Right. So I hadn't really been exposed to channeling at all until I stumbled upon Abraham Hicks by accident. And that was sort of like, YouTube suggesting something to you. And really, actually, when I was painting, just playing the thing after something else I'd been listening to.
Mhm.
And, the first couple episodes of bits that I'd heard from that were interesting, but I hadn't looked at the screen. I didn't know much about, I didn't know anything about Abraham Hicks, actually. And I just assumed that Abraham was almost a company or an organization because it was a woman's voice that was talking. And it wasn't until I heard quite a few and was really sold on this, oh, this is great stuff, that I turned around and went, okay, well, I'm going to look into what this is. And that's when I first found out that this was what's called channeled material. So I was a bit confused because I was like, well, what is that? That can't, like, is that a thing? Is that something that exists? And as I dove a little bit more into law of attraction, obviously the natural doubt about channeled material came up in terms of like the Abraham material, and you're going,
Mhm.
is this real? Is this someone is a hoax? Is someone just really good at doing that? But listening to more and more of it, I realized there's no way anyone could be that consistent with a messaging, on a spontaneous level with questions, unless it was all scripted. So I was like, okay, good. And I tried to apply these things to my life. This was quite early on in my sort of spiritual journey. And then later on, when I was doing more and more meditation, I had movement coming through my head. And I'd remembered Esther at the beginning of one of her books writing that that was sort of how Abraham began to come through. So my first instinct was to stop meditating altogether because I didn't want to be weird. I didn't want to be some strange character that has, voices coming through them. And because as a kid, I had seen, I guess what now I have to accept were spirits, and played with Ouija boards and was like a little bit weird as a kid, and everyone told me not to be weird. I said, okay, there's no way I'm allowing to take this any further. The spirituality thing is just going to make me strange, and I don't want to do it. But spirituality or meditation was serving me, so it was something that I'd become affectionate to and was interested in, and I really couldn't keep away from it. So eventually I got very frustrated with this request, the movement in the head or this sensation that something was trying to come through. And I said, that's it. I'm going to prove to whatever this is, whether it's an Abraham Hicks type character or whatever it is, that I'm not the person they're looking for. I'm not a channel. I have no interest in being a channel. I'm not capable of being a channel. So I said, okay, I'm going to follow the instructions, which at the time I didn't even know. I didn't have clear instructions like do this, do this, do this. I had a sensation of what was meant to occur. And I'm going to show them that it's not possible. I'm not the right person. So I lay down on my bed and I set up my phone with a recording software, just something quick. I downloaded an app just for that. And I went into meditation with this sort of like willingness to follow through with whatever this energy was requesting. And 20 minutes later, my alarm went off. I had to go and pick up my kids, and there was speaking on the recording. So that really began my journey to channeling.
So you don't remember saying those words. Are you completely
No.
out when it
Yeah,
starts?
I'm pretty much completely out. After that first time,
Hmm.
I was less out because it did scare me. So there was
Yeah.
more presence when I was sort of like seeing and experimenting and seeing where this goes and what is this energy, and developing really a relationship of trust with the energy. But I'm pretty much full trance channel, so I don't remember the sessions time. Like even if I do a full day event, to me it's like we just said hello in the morning as we're saying goodbye at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
so it really is a stepping out of time and space for my own perception of the situation.
So you find is it difficult to get into the trance? I mean,
No.
as somebody that puts other people in trance, the trance process is delicate, and so you
Right.
can do it
Well,
pretty easy.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty quick now. It's more of an intention rather than a process. And the way I sort of describe it, the analogy I use is that I think we all have this sort of like either a light switch or a dial within us that can allow this to occur. And somehow, I don't know how, I've figured out where in my beingness that switch is. So it can be very, very quick. I would say the first, now it's about a minute and a half time, I guess. I don't actually know how long it takes, but I think it's around there because when I get the recordings back, I can see. But that time is mostly spent with me in resistance to doing that one thing, whatever that one thing is, where I let
Mhm.
go. So it's really interesting for me to observe my own thought process right before the trance takes over, because it's kind of like, well, is that really them? Is that really what they're going to say? Is that really the first words that they want to say? Maybe I'm imagining it. No, maybe I'm imagining it. No, maybe I'm imagining it. And then it's like that. So it's just that letting go moment for me to get into a trance state like that.
So once you started receiving the information and letting it play in your mind, and tell me how it affected you and what sort of revelations that you had from this information.
So I think the first thing that comes up, and it's still, I'm probably still processing this first question, right? If I'm not in control of my brain and my body for a period of time and yet I still exist, then what am I? So that's still a pondering that exists. Like, if I'm not my personality, if I'm not my memories, if I'm not my brain, if I'm not my body, and all these things can be lended to another energy that is far wiser than I am, that, you know, seems to be able to be in service to others in a very profound way, then whatever it is that I consider to be me had to be re-understood. And I think that that sort of transformation impacts all of your life, because if you're not any of the things that you thought you were, and this is something that many, wisdom teachings are trying to share, or guiding people to understand, you're not your background, you're not your identity, you're not here to, well, then what do you want to use as your new worldview on your own existence? So that's definitely something that's been interesting to play with. And then the information that comes through, it's more as if I get the packages, and yes, I have access to them, but I'm still a person like anyone else. I have to unpack
Mhm.
anything that is being shared through me is not just automatically ingrained and understood. I still very much enjoy the mess of being human and getting into all kinds of trouble. And so I too am a student of Vagrein's teachings, but it's definitely made my life a lot smoother, because their philosophy of like it doesn't need to be hard really does, with repetition, rub off on you.
If you were to summarize their main message that they're trying to get, sometimes you can kind of see
Mhm.
carried through each of their, what would Vagreen's message be?
So at the very beginning, I thought the main message was unity consciousness, sort of like showing us that we are all one. And that definitely is an underlying, that probably would be the root or the theme of what they're wanting to share, because probably to them, that is where we would be of most benefit to understanding that. But what's really been evolving over the past year or two has been more of this route to getting there, which has been really interesting. And the route to getting there in terms of their teaching is radical self acceptance, a deep
Mhm.
love and understanding of oneself, the same way that source energy sees you, and sort of how every single one of the things you don't like about yourself is in perfect order, and every challenge that you're facing is in perfect order, and everything that you're experiencing in your life, every relationship that you're having is in perfect order, because you're that unique being that is required for unity to be complete. Without you, there's no such thing as unity. So it's really, really a beautiful evolution of their teachings that's focusing on each individual coming into a state of complete and like utter love and acceptance for self.
Do they talk about what's happening on the earth or outside events, or is it all internal type of teachings?
The earth and outside events are more talked about in terms of reflection and what each individual can do with those challenges or invitations or offerings that are being presented to us in the form of situation and circumstance.
Mhm.
So they don't go into sort of saying like this is how this should be and this should change in this way and look at what's going on here. But if a participant asks a question, or if there is a current event that maybe is impacting me directly, that I'm having emotional response to, they might touch on that in terms of a transmission and talk about what that is reflecting, what the offering is, what the invitation is, and reminding us that really it is our choosing to do whatever we would like to with anything that presents itself in our reality.
And when we were talking about it briefly before our interview, like the name Vagrein, you didn't hear it as a sound. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so they've never actually pronounced the name. When the name first came through, um, it was in that period where I was like a little bit more awake to the channeling because I was so nervous about like getting it wrong. And it was during one of the first sessions I had with other people, because very quickly after I started channeling and was like, trying to keep this a secret, I happened to meet this group of people who were really into channeling. Like, isn't that the way, right?
Right,
And
right.
so when they discovered that, I had this fledgling channeling ability, they were so excited to do, let's do a session, let's do a session, let's do a session. So finally I said, okay, we'll see what happens, right? So what's the first thing they asked? Like, who are we talking to, right? And Vagrein didn't reply to that question. What they did and said, first of all, they don't need to have a name. Names are only convenient for, understanding individuation when they're unified consciousness. But for the sake of ease, a name has been presented to me, the vessel, right? They call me the vessel. And yet I was too insecure to speak the name. So it would not be spoken, right, in this channeling session.
Yeah.
And that indeed was the case. And so actually this is how the name of the first book came about, because what is the first thing you do after a session like that when, infinite intelligence is messing with you and talking about you in the third person? You're like, oh my God, they've showed me this thing and I don't know what it means. I better go Google it, right? So I'm on the internet and I'm like, what do these letters mean? And I think there's a town in Switzerland that's a Vagrein, and then there's some, vaginal yeast products and stuff like that. But the one thing that I found that really like hit me and stopped the Googling right in that moment, in fact, was a baby names website. And on this baby names website, it said there were no instances of this name, but the meaning was seeking ends when sharing begins. So I was like, these
Wow.
dudes are messing with me big time.
Yeah.
They're basically saying, stop looking outside of you don't need to find the answers outside of yourself. They're all
Yeah.
within yourself. And the truth is, sharing whatever it is coming through you, not having that insecurity, not having that doubt, not having that I'm not good enough unworthiness thing, is really what is going to constitute your spiritual enlightenment, or your receiving everything in your life that is meant for you. So that was like my slap in the face. And really cemented, my belief that I wasn't making this up, because who would make up a name like that? I mean, to this day, if people search for Vagrein, they're probably going to get the vaginal yeast products first.
You get this sneaking suspicion that oftentimes with these channels, it's the same entity, and
Yes,
they kind of find names to be kind of humorous, and they joke around and throw names out. But you get a feeling you're still it's infinite intelligence,
it
like you
is.
said.
Yeah.
And they're teaching unity consciousness. So
Yeah.
Abraham is Vagrein, they're all the same, but
They're all the
it's just going to
same.
be flavored just like you're eating some soup, right? It's going to be flavored through you, and it's going to have its own colors and style, right?
That is literally the analogy they always use, the soup and the ingredients. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
even said it today. It is literally that. You've picked it up right from them, just to just to share it again for anyone who
Yeah.
knows their work, because and they also have this like running gag with me, because I won't remember the sessions or what's said, but I'll get what I call impressions. So sometimes I'll have a very visual experience of the channeling. I won't know what's going on or remember, but I'll get like almost like hallucinations of scenes. And one of the scenes that comes up often is this giant cauldron of soup, right? And these scenes are so vivid. And whenever they're talking about how like different sources of wisdom are simply different soup, and guess what? You don't need to follow everything of one source. You can pick and choose what you like. You can have this soup today and that soup tomorrow. Every time they go on and on with that while I'm in trance, I get this giant cauldron of soup, and man, does this stuff stink. Like it's just
Well, it's hilarious that I
so
mentioned soup. It just
soupy.
came to me right now. I
So you
mentioned
picked up on them. That
I,
is their analogy. And they even used it today. Someone said, someone who was familiar with that analogy said, like, oh, are you different from this other channel? And they were like, same soup, different flavor. That's
same
literally
soup.
like a catchphrase that they have now.
Wow. Do you ever
Yeah.
find yourself just, walking through the day and you feel like they're speaking through you or hinting about something that's going on in your life? Do they ever try to intervene or signal? It's always in those trance sessions that they're there.
Yeah, so they're accessible at all times. So if I were to sort of call on them or whatever, I can find myself if like especially in situations where I'm confused or I'm fearful, let's say maybe I'll like go like, hey, let's have a chat, or maybe I can't sleep, whatever. And very quickly like it just melds into just a state of just complete relax, and then there's no conversation to be had because obviously it's not necessary for me to be speaking with myself in that sort of way. But they don't intervene. Even if I do ask them direct information, the responses I get from them are the same that they give to anyone else. The answers are within you. You don't need our validation. You don't need to, there's nothing you need to know right now that's out of your reach. Feel into the thing, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't have like extra access to them. And I think with me in particular, they take an even further standoff approach, almost like a let's see what kind of mistakes and where she leads to on herself, as opposed to getting too involved with this particular lifeline here. But they have suggested very very much at the beginning, they had me reading the dictionary to increase my vocabulary, or to sometimes I'll be impulsed to read a different kind of book that I'm not at all interested in, whether it's like on technology or finance or like some random things that I'm not at all like, I don't think, hey, this is going to be great to read. I'll be really impulsed to read it, and I'll be like, is that you guys? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'll go read the book. It's like homework. And that'll be for vocabulary or for concepts maybe that they have found that I'm lacking in the gray matter in there that they can access.
Have you ever considered having two entities speak to each other? Like if you brought another channeler and then you could each have them sort of start a conversation, or has that ever
I
anything
think
like
it would be fun, but I worry that it would just be like two channelers sitting in silence.
right,
Because
right.
like otherwise it would be theater. Like it might be fun if it was like
Yeah.
almost like a cabaret for others. Like I think if you could get two comical channeled entities to come and like have a back and forth and like play something out that they improvise in the moment, that could be super fun. I could see
Yeah.
that happening. But I think if it was anything for like a level being profound, um, it would be unnecessary on their
Yeah.
part. There would be no motivation. So unless it was stimulated by others, and I have heard of panels where there's like several beings in trance or channeled, and then there's like an interaction with someone who's not. But the two
Hmm.
of them together, I can't see what would come up, because as you said, it really is the same energy with different voices, different roots, different valleys.
Do they have restrictions? Is there things that they don't answer? That it doesn't matter how you ask, they're just never going to give you. They won't. It's not important to them.
There's a lot. So anything that violates your free will, they're not going to
Hmm.
answer. Anything that would sway you from your own ability to choose, they're not going to answer. If there's something along the lines of involving a third party, like if you're asking about someone else and what their emotions are, even if that third party is non-physical, even if you're like, hey, what are my alien guides saying, and how should I best contact them? They'll be like, listen, you've got the phone right there. Pick it up and give them a call. It's not our business to tell you what they're thinking. Like, go and have a communication with them, directly. Um, so there's those things. That said, no topic is off limits. In other words, they've never said to me, don't let people ask about politics, don't let people ask about their
Hmm.
health, etc. Even though I'm not necessarily comfortable with those topics,
Hmm.
because they have a way of understanding what the questions are beyond what the questioner is asking, and guiding the people back to themselves anyway, in very efficient ways. So if someone's asking something about their future, or asking something about their health, or asking something about politics, they do have ways to anyway deliver to that person a learning that that person was seeking by even having that question in the first place. Probably not the answer to that question,
Right, right.
but definitely something.
And do they teach about it? With channelers, sometimes it's different. Like Abraham really focuses on the law of
Mhm.
attraction and reality creation. And some channelers, that's not their. Do they teach about reality creation?
They do a bit when it's asked about directly. And it comes up a lot, organically, even if it's not asked about directly, because it is, at least from my understanding, a law that you are attracting and choosing from infinite potentials. So
Hmm.
forget even if law of attraction was something magical or mystical, right? If
Hmm.
you're in a good mood, you're more equipped to make better decisions. You're also more equipped to have better relationships with other people, because if you're smiling and you go into a shop, it's a very different experience than if you're not smiling and you go into a shop. So, law of attraction, or simply allowing your state of being to guide the choices that you're making in a good state of being, is going to make the outcomes of your life easier, or have you have a better day. So Vagrein's teachings will often go to, law of attraction style teachings, or well, pretty much anything. That's not the only type of teaching, metaphysical teaching that we
Yeah.
have. They'll go to many different types of teachings, because those are valid teachings and because they can be beneficial to a human being. Now, law of attraction is only useful in a experience where there's both physical and non-physical. If you
Hmm.
were all non-physical, there's no such thing as law of attraction, because everything exists all at once. So it's interesting how we do have these channels that come from, let's say, non-physical realms to aid us in understanding better, like, how do we play the game of this? It's fun.
It's super fascinating. There is no doubt. So, um, yeah, I would love to have an opportunity to speak to Vagrein. I'm always a little bit nervous and don't know quite what questions to ask when I go through this process. But if it's okay with you,
For sure.
takes a little bit of time to go into trance,
Yeah,
I
just a
suppose.
minute or two. So that won't take long. I'll just have a sip of water,
All right.
and off we go. And then yeah, I don't know, how long do you want that to be? Well, either you decide
Well,
or they'll decide.
yeah, we'll go a natural. We'll just go with a comfortable natural period of time, and then we'll bring you out and we'll maybe go over, take notes on what they had to say. All right.
Perfect. I would
All right.
love that.
Okay.
Okay, so I will see you in a while, and then you'll have to let me know how it goes. My
Yeah.
job is to get out of the way, and your job and your audience's job is just to enjoy. So I'll see you in a little while. Good now to you. We are pleased to be meeting with you in this fashion and are eager to discuss with you anything you so choose to know more of yourselves. Hello.
Hello, Vagrian. It is an honor to speak with you today. Thank you for spending this time with us.
We thank all of you.
Before we begin, is there any message or anything that you would like to share with us?
Yes, we understand that those who will be listening to this, who are in this now listening to this, are those who are interested in finding out who they truly are, finding out the best ways to create the lives that they are desiring, the best ways to be in service to others, and the best ways to have a good time. We will tell you that you are some of the few that have these goals. So do not discount that these goals are important. Do not think that they are something that is frivolous or unusual. They are special in many ways, because it is you who is listening to this, who is making the choice to lead by example, by changing themselves into the versions of self that would be in most benefit for your collective in this now. You can already, in that realization, the realization that you are here present for your own evolution and aware of it, that you are on the right track. Yes, for you. Because of course, there's also those that are doing something completely different in their life, and they are no less on track. They're simply on a different track. We welcome you to celebrate yourselves, to rejoice in yourselves, even in those moments in which you do not feel completely confident, even in those moments where you do not feel completely aligned. For alignment is your true nature. It is coming through you at all times regardless. What would you like to discuss today?
Thank you. The first question that comes to mind is in this world that I'm in now, it appears that there is great division outside of me. And I am struggling to find ways to deal with this division within myself when I go within, and to properly communicate and resolve these differences that I see, the lack of empathy, the division, the separateness. Is there a way that I can further understand myself to bridge these divisions?
Yes. As you know, you are a student of gratitude. You already know the benefits of that energy. The requests for understanding division within you, this desire to not be divisive, can be remedied with increasing your mastery of gratitude. If you can envision that being with whom you feel the most disconnected on your planet, shall we say it as a human being, for the moment, if you can imagine them and the choices they make and the life that they live and the lack of empathy or sympathy or the perspectives that they are taking that are very far removed from the ones that you yourself hold and would wish for the collective to hold. If you can envision this person and find even a slimmer of gratitude for them, then you are heading towards the understanding that you are already unified with their energy. The gratitude can be found in the thankfulness that you have that they are stimulating you and others into more awareness of what you would choose as an alternative, that they are showing you other options that you are able to then discern whether are in service to you or not, that they are telling you what road you would go down if you were under the same circumstances that they in the now moment under and are affected by. For each and every one of you on this planet in this now moment is only acting in the ways that they are acting because, for whatever reason, they have come to understand that that is the best way to be acting. In the exploration of the complete opposite to your perception of the best way of being, you can also understand or come to understand where it is that your entire collective, and yes, where it is within yourself, you are seeking to unify, to find ways to include all, to include self, to include, yes, even the darkness that you find in yourselves. Everything already is unity consciousness. It is the perception of division that causes division. But once there's an understanding that all is unified, measures can be taken on a physical level in order to bring that into reality. But of course, those measures can only be taken on the physical level after they have been taken on the energetic one.
In my seeking to understand these divisions, I have come to the observation that many of the entities and individuals that I encounter are living in completely different reality bubbles, meaning that I do not properly comprehend the world that they're in. They see the world completely differently, and I struggle in understanding these reality bubbles. I understand that I want to have this unity. Is there a way for me to understand these disparate realities that I find people that are within?
The first thing to understand is that these realities or these perceptions present themselves in your reality for what reason? And in your case, it is so that not you can dismantle and dissect their realities in a desire to understand, but that so you can double down on the reality that you are investing in if you believe in it. The perceptions that others are holding that tell you that the reality is different are there in order for you to check in with yourself as to whether or not you will continue or do desire to continue to eat what it is you are selecting from the buffet of all that is. If what you are selecting does feel good to you, then in the face of contrast to that or conflict of that or challenge to it, you always have the opportunity to understand even deeper that you are committed to the path that you are upon. It is not a simple path to walk to transformation of an entire collective, but it is done by those who do have the steadfastness to understand what the worth is of doing so. You are not here to understand the reality bubbles of each and every person that you come across. You are here to thank them for presentation of realities that do not feel good to you, because then by their experiencing or showing of their reality to you, you now have a clearer vision of where it is you would want to go and what could be in service as well to them.
One thing I notice in this, as I try to help people and be of the best of service, I have a lot of people that come to me that are just struggling with finances. They're in poverty, and they live in a state of lack. And I want to help them. How can I be of service to those that are struggling in poverty to help them overcome this problem?
So we too have come across these beings, and it is because of your collective consciousness around this topic. This particular topic is not only accidentally set up in the way that it is connected with many other aspects of the reality that you have chosen for yourself. And it is unraveling over time, but does require a reframing of the consciousness of abundance. It is as if the invention of money or finance has created a blindness to the abundance that is your access to existing on a day-to-day basis. You are all wildly abundant. You are all wildly abundant for access to the sun, wildly abundant for access to the air that you breathe, perhaps in some pockets of the world not as abundant in terms of your access to water. But anyone who is listening to this particular transmission is wildly abundant in so many things, even if their financial situation, which ultimately is an illusion, does speak differently, and they find themselves in a system or a configuration in which it seems as if they have no way out. It is because they are looking at one closed door and not understanding that behind them is an open field. As the mentality around money or around abundance shifts towards one that is more in tune with yourselves when you were pre-incarnate, you will find that the financial issues or aspects unravel themselves more easily. You are already helping these people because this is the focus of your work in this now. You are not telling them go make money here, there, and the other place. You are helping them to unravel these beliefs that they have within them and instill new beliefs that are more serving to them. But when people do come to you with their concerns about finance, they are not, in most cases, following the information or the advice that you are providing for them at a T. They are often focusing on, yes, that advice, but then slipping into their fear or worry. It is a requirement to become very brave in the face of changing and challenging beliefs, because even if you understand a concept, you are still a physical incarnate being, and you will need to have the bravery to take those small steps to challenge oneself, to experiment with whether or not those new beliefs are indeed going to work out for you.
Can you help me in changing my own beliefs or in helping others who desire a change in their beliefs? What is the best way for me to do that?
The best way to change one's beliefs is to really get honest with what that belief is. As soon as you are honest with what the belief is that you are wanting to change, you do get stimulated by the emotions that show you how out of alignment that is with what your inner being truly believes. So, for example, let us take a belief in poverty. I can never make ends meet. This is not a pleasant feeling for most people to have, especially those who do have this on an experiential level. The people who have this on an experiential level will believe it wholeheartedly, but simultaneously in that belief will have the negative emotion that comes with it. As soon as you have a thought such as, I am poor, or I cannot make money, or I will not be able to make ends meet this month, and it is coupled by an emotional state, your homework is to remember that the negative emotional state is not telling you, hey, you know what, you're right, you are a failure, you are not going to have money. What it is telling you is the exact opposite. It is telling you that your reality on a non-physical level is that what you have just told it and fed it as a belief is inaccurate. The more inaccurate a belief is for you, the more pain you will feel by holding on to it. This is also good news, because it means that at some point, if you have enough pain around a belief system, you will decide of your own volition to let it go. Is it truly serving you to believe that you are poor? Many people would say yes, because if I did not believe I was poor, I would not work and I would not struggle and strain. I would not get up and go and try to find a new job. We are saying to you, this is not true. You do not need to hold the belief of poverty to have wealth. In fact, it is the opposite. And the reason why it feels so bad is because this is exactly the same message your inner being is telling you. Any belief that you are holding that is not in alignment with your inner being and with what is best for you will feel horrible. Allow yourself to get truly in touch with what feels horrible to you. We know this sounds counterintuitive, but once you understand the things within you that feel bad, you also understand where you are ready deeply to let go of those things and experiment with simply not believing those things any longer. So back to our friend who believes they are poor, and yes, who has a bank account that confirms that, and yes, who has money lenders that are coming to confirm that even further with a hammer on their legs. We know there are dire situations, but the one who has a idea that they cannot come out of financial ruin will hold on to that reality forever. Instead, the one who lets go of the idea and says, perhaps this is my situation today. Perhaps things look bad. And perhaps today, just today, I do not need to hold on to the belief that this is forever, quite as tight. I do not need to hold on to the belief that I'm doomed quite as tightly. Perhaps today I can begin to hold on to the belief of hope.
In the process of with my channel, I end up meeting a lot of people that are suffering from traumas that they experience in their childhoods, and they're seemingly incapable of letting them go, and they define everything that they're experiencing in the now. Can you help me to properly help those others resolve those traumas in the appropriate way?
Yes. So our definition of trauma is emotions that at the time of an event were not able to be felt. This is why so many of these traumas occur in childhood, because it is not safe, perhaps, for one to have the full expression of an emotional response to a situation in the moment that it occurred. For example, if you have an abusive parent, crying about it often caused more danger to you. Therefore, you learned at some point to not cry about it or to not express these things because you also did not have a safe place to do so. The good news with this definition and the good news with trauma is that all that is required, although it is terrifying for one who has had to repress, all that is required is a safe feeling through and expression of the emotions. And by expression, we do not mean acting out. We mean the allowing of that energy to flow through one's body, processing it, and letting it go into the ethers where it belongs. Energy in motion is what emotion is. Therefore, yes, what was occurring to you caused the emotion. It caused the emotion because it was out of alignment with your inner being. You did not have time to process it in that now moment. Therefore, the intelligence of your physical body and the intelligence of your emotional body stored it for a later date. It comes out in adulthood, not to damage you, not to cause you trouble, but because your inner being knows that in that moment, you do have the faculties and the capabilities to handle it. You do have the faculties and the capabilities to be able to process it and let it go. So it is good news if trauma is resurfacing, because it is time for it to go out of your system. People do not like to feel emotions. Your collective is afraid of emotional expression. It is afraid of emotions altogether. It would rather be in a state of anger and violence than feel any form of sorrow. You see this all over your planet. Therefore, a strong being is one who learns to feel their sorrow and know that it cannot harm them. This is the key. Your sorrow in and of itself cannot harm you, and it is not infinite, even though in the moment that it is expressing, it may feel as if it is. At some point, you will need to go to the toilet. At some point, you will need to eat some food. Depression is not the state of sorrow, it is the state of depressing the sorrow as well. So, having a good cry, allowing yourself to feel safe, learning to reparent yourself so that you are able to give space to yourself to have these emotions come out. Allowing yourself to really say, it is not fair what happened to me. I was cheated, I was robbed, those people did the wrong thing, and I also still love them, or I also still have confused emotions about them. Again, it is about being honest with oneself and allowing the emotions to guide you.
My next question is sort of related to the way I'm perceiving the world. I live in a world where fiction is a large element. I watched television shows and movies and read amazing books. And I often worry I get lost in these fictional worlds and I'm not, it takes me away from the best way for me to be of service to others and can make me indifferent. So I wanted to talk about the role of fictional worlds in my existence. Can they be of help? Should I avoid them? How do I how do I interact with these fictional worlds, which can often feel like a balm in a world of chaos?
So, as you know, the human imagination is a powerful creator. It is also a window into other realities. Anything that is in your existence, in your reality, is as real as anything else. Imagination and the arts, the fiction you are describing, is either in literature or in film or in games. And they're only a distraction if your intention is not to engage with them. But if you do set aside time to engage with them and they do provide some form of traveling without leaving your home, then they are not a distraction from your mission, from your work. They are a augmentation of it. You would not be attracted to storytelling. You would not be attracted to fiction, so to speak, if it were not in many ways part of who you are. Therefore, nothing, we would never say that something could be in and of itself detrimental to one. But if you are finding that there are moments that it is taking away from the things that are of value to you, then what is being asked is not to eliminate these sources of joy. Yes, and they are sources of joy for you as well as escape at times, correct, but joy. Then what you can do is learn from this inkling that perhaps it is taking up too much time, that there are new boundaries to be set with oneself.
Thank you for that. I would also like to know the role of art in relation to that and how my creation of art can be of service and how can I use my art to be of service to others?
So again, art is, like fiction, window into other worlds. It is channeled material like fiction. It is access. You are accessing aspects of the human collective or of collective consciousness in general, in your case, that are of a nature of giving information, giving transmission, allowing energy to be transmitted in ways that are not mental in their capacity, but can, yes, be included with, but in this case, are of that emotional communication. And so, naturally, your art is of service to others because for every piece of artwork that comes through you in a way that feels good to you, if it is then seen by another being and something is triggered within them, then that direct transmission of positive energy has already occurred. This is the same as if you baked a cake and it was delicious and you brought joy to a person while they were eating it. So it is already part of your service to others. Again, this, like your desire or propensity towards fiction, is an integral part of you and does support your service to others, because everything that you are includes everything that you are. There is no need to eliminate any aspect of oneself to be the best version of oneself that one is. So if you have inspiration to create your art, it is correct in that now moment to do so, even if some other form of service needs to be paused for a moment. Likewise, if there is a sensation that one should be reading their favorite novel in this now moment, then that is the correct thing for them to do. Either way, your inner guidance is guiding you. And if you do happen to indulge or make a directive mistake, there is no mistake, there cannot be, but if you were to do something that you yourself would seem to be a mistake, we promise you will know about it shortly.
I'd like to know about the role of permission in terms of service. Sometimes I know I can use my imagination or some action where I can really be of service to others, but I also know that I need to ask permission. And in some cases, I can do a disservice without receiving permission from someone else to give them that service. Can you help me in this balancing act in giving service properly with someone's permission?
Yes, so this is a learning of discernment, first off. We will correct you, however, to say that even in the case in which you feel like you have overstepped a boundary, there is no mistake being made. Now, we are not saying to continue to overstep that boundary, because in the moment that you have felt that, you have already learned something. So that whole exchange, that whole soul contract with that other being could have been simply to allow you to learn more about this particular topic. But there are those who want to help so deeply that they do indeed overstep their place. They believe they are seeing something. They believe that they are able to help in a certain way, and they offer what they are able to share without consent or permission, as you are saying. This is something that is capable to be done on the human level. And you will know when that has occurred, because either your relationship will change or that person will have a kickback impulse to you. But what we would say is, at all times that you are offering and that permission is granted, remember to continue to check in on a non-physical level, which we know you are capable of. So when it comes to helping others, the biggest key is to remember that there's no need to help anyone. Everyone does have their own inner guidance. Everyone does have their own inner being that is guiding them to whatever it is they are doing. And yes, you mentioned your ability to aid with imagination. The good news comes back to those individual bubbles of reality. If your imagination or what you're imagining for another is ultimately not in service to them or has not been consented by, even if it would be of their benefit, then luckily they are living in their own bubble of reality. And so whatever it is that you are offering to them will not implement or hit them in a negative fashion. What we will say, though, however, is your thought about this is in itself an imagining in that direction. Therefore, what we would like most from this conversation is for you to let go even of the idea of being able to impact someone in a negative fashion.
Thank you for that. And I was wondering if you could tell me about the shift that is seemingly happening in this world now. Tell me more from a non-physical perspective of what is happening.
Well, what exactly would you like to know about the shift?
I see changes in the behavior of people. I see chaos. It seems like there's both greater violence and a greater activism, greater empathy. Everything seems much more profound. And I would like to, if you can lend your advice on how I can navigate through these incredible changes that are happening around me.
So the navigation is in each now moment asking oneself, who will I be? Because the people that you are seeing, both those who are active and those who are violent, action is always in many ways reaction. Perhaps they are taking these actions quickly before contemplating all of the examples and mostly before contemplating who they would like to be. A good sentence to navigate changes, and there are changes, there need to be these changes, is in the face of leave the blank to whatever is in your face. Who would I like to be? So, in the face of violence, who do I want to be? In the face of injustice, who do I want to be? And begin to fill in these blanks, because all the circumstance and situation around you is really therefore is to entice you to fill in these blanks. Now, before the chaos began to present itself, you already knew that it was on its way, and you were spoken to about it for many eons. You also already decided who you wanted to be. You said, well, I would like to be in service to others. I would like to be compassionate. I would like to be kind. I would like to be strong and courageous. I would like to be able to protect those who I feel need my direct protection, etc., etc. You had a list of these things. Now that the experiences are around you, or you see people responding to experiences around you, all you have to do is remember that that is who you wanted to be, because the answers are already within you on how to navigate it. Whether or not anyone else is finding mastery in their navigation of self in the face of crisis or consequence or catalyst is not any of your business. What is your business is, in the face of you seeing everyone else lose their heads, who do you want to be?
Vagrein, I want to thank you for your amazing answers and the time that you've spent. It is incredibly wonderful to get an opportunity to speak to you, and thank you for the service that you are doing on this planet.
We thank you as well, and we are honored to have been in your presence in this now. With the light and the love of 1,000 suns. Anai.
All right. So tell me right now, fresh in this moment, do you remember anything?
So I got like impressions. Impressions are sort of like visual imprints of parts of the conversation that I may not have context for. So I saw some like rioting. I saw, what else did I see? Oh yeah, definitely someone with a poverty mindset, like someone going
Yeah.
like really just feeling down on themselves and being like, "There's no way. I'm really just like the doomed type of thing. Like
Yeah.
I can't get out of this hole." Um, and how
Interesting.
annoying Vagrein's teaching is to that, like that person's
Yeah.
annoyance with like,
Yeah.
this entity doesn't know what it's talking about, that kind of thing. And yeah, no, that's pretty much it.
And it's
Unfortunately, I don't get
interesting
that
to get
much.
it's a visual impression. It's
Yeah,
that what your memory is sort of a
it's
visual
it's a
impression.
sensory impression. So like I'll see in that case, like it was almost like I was that character and I could feel what they were feeling, and they were sort of like the context of where they were was like in like it just in a really dark like apartment, like
Yeah.
just uncomfortable, and just sort of like almost a sensation of like giving up,
Yeah.
even though they're trying, just sort of a given up sensation. So
I'm
yeah.
super happy I asked about that. I need to
Okay.
ask that. I've gotten the wonderful opportunity to interview a bunch of channelers through this
Yeah.
podcast, and I really found it interesting. The word choices, the syntax are very similar to Quo. If you've gotten a chance to listen to my
Okay.
Quo channelings,
Okay. Yeah.
the word choices and the choice of what topics and the restrictions. It's I always find that interest because they mentioned catalyst at the end,
Mhm.
and service to others is really the focus. And
Yeah.
so it has a similar flavor. Let's say that
Right.
the soup tastes the
Nice.
same.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
But I just I I try to imagine what these and obviously it's impossible for us, like what these entities are like if I met them, like I like what,
Hmm.
or like what's going on, is it, I always get something crazy or different, you know what I mean, like you know is it just a big room of light? Are these like ghost-like entities, or is it like an expanded, is it feeling, it's so fascinating to sit
Yeah.
and ponder on that. Ultimately we are talking to ourselves when we're doing
Hmm.
this, but it's like
Yeah.
a different version. So I thank you for spending the time and sharing that with me. When you first started doing this, did you feel like raw and it's like nervous about it, right? Like I'm going to be showing a part of for other people, seeming yourself. And how did you overcome that sort of insecurity of it's almost like you're naked, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Because you're letting yourself go and this other thing's taking over, right?
Well, it's funny. Vagrein once in one of their challenge they said like we'd like to thank the vessel for looking ridiculous and doing it anyways, because like there's very much that sense of like, oh my God. And they make
Yeah.
me do some funny things. I had a one-day event, no, at the retreat. I did a retreat this summer, and they in their introductory session they wanted to break the ice. They're quite comical. They can get really, really funny, especially if they
Hmm.
know a group for a little while. And they were like, we want you to, and it's like exactly how this was delivered, completely straight face, there's no expression on my face when I'm channeling and stuff like that. They were like, well, we would like you to take the corners of your mouth and point them at your eyes, right? And then they made me make this face in the middle of the chat, which of course got the whole crowd like cracking up, because I'm sitting there in full trance channel like this, right? Because they're as much as possible trying to make this joke about smiling and like letting go and being a little less serious. But on the recording, the playback, I'm like, oh my God. It's so embarrassing, like, because it is your body and you kind of do have an attachment to
Yeah.
it. um but in terms of like vulnerability, I figured out very early on that the only reason why I wouldn't share this would be if I was like caving into my ego. And I'd done enough sort of non-duality training, or looking into that subject, to understand like what the ego was and what it's trying to get you to do. And I'm not
Hmm.
anti-ego now. Vagrein has some really cool teachings about like why the ego is so useful. But it would have been really selfish for me not to share these transmissions. And so I kind of made it like my mission. It has to be, as pure as possible, as much as I can do, while also continuing on my own journey of self-acceptance, of going, okay, I'm not perfect, and I'm going to just do the best I can do for as long as this is available to me.
So I just want to thank you, Jessica. And we're going to have I'm going to put the link for your website and your wonderful YouTube channel. You got to check out. You have 2 books where you've shared the channelings, and we're maybe going to put together an episode where I'm going to read some more of these to share some of the insight. But more importantly, I just want to thank you for spending the time with me and sharing these insights. It's been wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Brian. It's been so amazing to meet you too. I've been looking forward to this, since I first found your YouTube channel. So, I knew it was in the wings.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
We return you now to your local announcer.